A married woman is just an outsider. So why is this big fat outsider in our house? Did you come to the wrong place?" The words of my sister echoed in the living room. I placed a hand on my growing belly and regretted returning to my parents' home. I had decided on a homecoming delivery after discussing it with my husband Mark. I never imagined I would receive such a welcome. As I was met with cold stares, what welled up in my chest was not sadness, but anger. I decided to stop all financial aid. Who was it that said a married woman is an outsider? Who is obligated to support an outsider? An uneasy silence filled the room. Something snapped inside me. I vowed that I wouldn't let this go quietly. I would teach this family what it truly means to be outsiders. My name is Ashley, a homemaker in my 30s. Until a few years ago, I was single and devoted to my career, but now I spend peaceful days with my husband Mark. However, before achieving this happy life, I had a long-standing conflict with my family and a painful past. My family consisted of my father, mother, older brother Thomas, and me. We lived in a small rental house and weren't financially well off, but since my father was a calm and gentle person, I think we were relatively peaceful. But my mother was the one who disrupted that peace. My mother loved flashy things and was obsessed with keeping up appearances. She frequently bought new clothes and cosmetics, but she refused to face the reality that our household budget was tight. She did the bare minimum of housework, and our meals were mostly ready-to-eat meals or takeout. "I don't want to be tied down to this house." From time to time, she would say things like that and lash out at my father. Our family's peace was maintained only because my father quietly endured it. If my father had been like my mother, our family would have collapsed. And when I was in middle school, my father suffered a stroke, and my mother's attitude worsened. On the surface, she pretended to be worried, but in reality, she seemed to view my father's hospitalization as a chance to be free. She started going out frequently, and there were more days when she didn't come home until late at night. Even when she did come home, she didn't take care of us, and the housework was left to Thomas and me. My mother's behavior became truly incomprehensible shortly after my father was hospitalized. She started going out more often, dressed in flashy clothes and smelling of perfume, saying she was meeting friends. Even as children, we knew she was probably going to see a man. Meanwhile, Thomas in my life became extremely harsh. It was far from the life of an average child. My father's hospitalization weighed heavily on our household finances. Thomas immediately started working part-time, and I helped with housework while visiting my father in the hospital as much as possible. Then, my mother started frequently inviting a man, who seemed to be her lover, to our house while my father was still in the hospital. We were bewildered by this change. Thomas and I talked about it many times. "I can't stand Mom anymore." "But if we tell Dad, his condition might get worse." I know, but still." In the end, we couldn't muster the courage to tell our father the truth. Meanwhile, my mother became pregnant and gave birth to a child with her lover. This was my sister Lisa, who is 10 years younger than me. When I gained a sister 10 years younger than me, I felt complicated emotions. My place in this house was completely gone. My mother's attention was solely on Lisa, and Thomas and I were increasingly neglected. We believed that our mother was mainly taking care of our father, but later, even that seemed doubtful. My daily meals consisted only of leftovers. Thomas supported most of my basic needs with his part-time job earnings. "I won't let Ashley go through hardships." Saying that, he gave up on going to college and continued to work for the family. When I was about to give up on high school, Thomas strongly encouraged me. "You must at least finish high school. You'll definitely struggle later without an education." "But I don't want to burden you any further." "It's okay. I'll manage." Encouraged by his words, I enrolled in a night high school. I worked while studying, and after graduating, started working and sending a portion of my income to my family. Thomas and I also paid for my father's hospital bills and Lisa's school fees together. As we continued this life, perhaps without realizing it, We had come to tolerate the existence of our mother and Lisa. Years passed, and when I was 28, I met Mark and got married. Mark was a calm person who accepted the past I carried. With our marriage, I decided to put an end to my relationship with my family. I had no intention of informing my mother and Lisa about the wedding. I knew I wouldn't receive any words of congratulations anyway. Do you not want to tell your family about the wedding? It's fine. They won't congratulate me anyway, and if they find out, it'll just cause unnecessary trouble. If that's what you want, it's okay. He seemed a bit surprised, but respected my feelings. Afterward, we worked together to build a small house. It was a house filled with a faint hope of reconnecting with my family. Our married life was going well, and I thought I had finally found my own happiness. But it seemed it would take more time for the wounds of the past to fully heal. At times, the faces of my father and Thomas flashed through my mind, and the complicated feelings towards my mother and Lisa tightened my chest. While cherishing my happy days, perhaps a part of me was waiting for an opportunity to face my family. One day, I received a call from Thomas after a long time. Are you doing well? Yeah, I'm fine. How about you? I'm doing okay, just the usual. But Dad's condition hasn't been good lately. His words made my chest tighten. It had been years since my father had the stroke. I didn't know the details of how he was spending his days in the hospital. I had tried to visit him many times, but my father refused, telling me to live my own life. I see. Is there anything I can do? Don't worry about it. He probably didn't want to burden me. I felt sorry that only Thomas was carrying the burden. A year after our marriage, a sudden storm hit our peaceful life. It started with a phone call from my sister Lisa. Ashley, I heard you got married. That's amazing. I can't believe even you could get married. Where did you hear that? Why did you bother to call me? I couldn't understand her intentions and had a bad feeling. Mom told me. Normally you tell your family directly, right? Lisa's casual tone echoed in my ears. It was as if she was implying that I had done something insensitive. I doubted how much weight the word family held for her. I didn't think there was any obligation to inform you. How cold. Oh well, so what's Mark like? He's a normal person. Normal, huh? If you married him, he must be earning a decent living, right? And is he handsome by any chance? Lisa's barrage of questions made me break out in a cold sweat. Her frivolous attitude hadn't changed. It's none of your business, Lisa. I'm just worried about my family, you know. That's some attitude. Everyone's been feeling lonely because you won't open up. Everyone? Who are you talking about? Mom, of course. She wants to see you. And I thought it would be nice to see you after so long. I couldn't tell how serious she was. But when she mentioned my mother's name, I couldn't simply brush her off. No matter what I was told or how I was treated, she was still my mother. But I couldn't help but be wary of Lisa's casual approach. What's your purpose? I don't have an ulterior motive. I just want to greet Mark as his sister-in-law. As his sister-in-law, huh? I couldn't believe she meant what she said. Despite my bad feeling, I reluctantly agreed to her suggestion. Okay, I can make some time, but only for a little while. Great, I'll see you soon then. I'm looking forward to it. As soon as the call ended, I let out a sigh. I hoped Lisa's sudden visit wouldn't disrupt our peaceful days. But I was already prepared for the likelihood that my hope wouldn't be fulfilled. A few days later, Lisa arrived at our house dressed flamboyantly. She was wearing a short skirt and a revealing top, and a strong smell of perfume wafted from the entrance. The moment I opened the door, I involuntarily held my breath. The smell was that overwhelming. Welcome. Thanks for having me. Oh, so this is your place? It's surprisingly tidy. She looked around the room and smiled at me with a judging look. A small flame of anger ignited in the depths of my chest. I showed her to the living room, and Lisa immediately started talking to Mark. Despite meeting for the first time, Lisa acted overly familiar. Mark, nice to meet you. I'm Lisa, Ashley's younger sister. You're such a wonderful person. Too good for Ashley. Nice to meet you too. So you're Ashley's sister. Mark responded with a gentle expression. He's the type of person who doesn't suspect others, even in situations like this. That's both his good point and a cause for concern. You know, Mark, I can't believe someone like you is my brother-in-law. Ashley has always been so plain. You know what I mean? I frowned at her words. Lisa seemed to be enjoying herself as she directed her snide remarks at Mark. Lisa, don't say unnecessary things. You're making Mark uncomfortable. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. As she said that, Lisa's gaze was fixed on Mark. She showed no sign of remorse. On the contrary, she narrowed her eyes as if carefully observing Mark. Mark seemed either unaware or unbothered, maintaining a calm demeanor. Well, I like people like Ashley. Besides, Ashley is a wonderful wife. Huh, is that so? But I think a more flashy wife would suit you too. Like, for example, someone like me. Lisa's words made me feel like my heart had momentarily frozen. She was clearly provoking me. There was no way I could stay silent in such an atmosphere. Lisa, that's enough. Oh, come on. It was just a joke. Lisa shrugged casually and smiled as if nothing had happened. Her seemingly innocent attitude only further irritated me. After that, Lisa continued to praise Mark while subtly putting me down. Before I knew it, my hand was tightly gripping the edge of the sofa. Lisa's visit, as I had anticipated, disrupted my peace, but this day was just the beginning. After that, Lisa started visiting our house frequently, always finding some excuse. Hey, I was in the neighborhood, so I thought I'd stop by. You should have called first. Mark, I brought you a gift. You really didn't have to, but thank you. Mark responded politely, but seeing his reaction, my heart was far from calm. Lisa's actions seemed to be aimed at getting closer to Mark, and it was becoming increasingly blatant. One day, something even more surprising happened. Lisa suddenly suggested that I give up my house as an excuse to celebrate my mother's 60th birthday. Hey, Ashley, why don't you give this house to Mom? Or maybe you can live together. What are you talking about? Mom says she wants to live with you, Ashley. Your house would be just right. For a moment, a flicker of joy welled up inside me. Could it be true that my mother wanted to live with me? But the next moment, doubts crept into my mind. It felt like Lisa was using my mom to corner me. Did Mom really say that? Yeah, she did. If you don't believe me, why don't you ask her directly? Lisa smiled slyly, but I immediately shook my head. I have no intention of doing that. This is Mark in my house. I won't give it to anyone. Oh, you're surprisingly stubborn. But whatever. Let me know if you change your mind. Leaving those words behind, Lisa turned and left. As I saw her off, I let out a deep sigh. I didn't know what she was scheming, but I felt I needed to be prepared for anything. That night, when I told Mark about it, he was calm as usual. If you don't want to, that's fine. I'm on your side, Ashley. His words warmed my heart. As long as he was with me, I felt like I could face anything. But I didn't think Lisa and my mother would back down so easily. I vowed not to let them have their way any longer. Then, the greatest happiness of my life came to me. I was blessed with a new life with Mark. When I found out I was pregnant, my heart was filled with so much emotion that tears naturally flowed. It was our first child. Really? Ashley, thank you. I'll have to work even harder now. Thank you, Mark. It's all thanks to you. Let's do our best together from now on. From that day on, our lives revolved around the baby. Choosing a hospital, preparing baby goods, and thinking of names. Those days were pure happiness. Initially, I planned to give birth at a hospital near our home. It was a place where I had many acquaintances, and the environment was set up for Mark and me to start raising our child together immediately after I was discharged. But as I entered the 3rd trimester, Mark's work became busier, and his return home was increasingly delayed. I worried that he might not be able to come immediately if I went into labor. Also, I wasn't sure if he could provide enough support after the birth. Don't say that. You're making me worry. I'm sorry, but realistically, I feel really bad about this. His apologetic face made me speechless. It wasn't Mark's fault. I knew he was doing his best for me. But it was also true that I hesitated to face childbirth alone at home while feeling anxious. After much thought, I decided to go back to my parents' home to give birth. When I told my mother and Lisa about it on the phone, they surprisingly welcomed the idea. Oh, going back home, that sounds nice. Are you sure? Won't it be a burden? A burden? Of course not. We'd be glad to have you back. You can help us with the housework, too. Something about her words bothered me. The way she emphasized help seemed strange. Help? Well, even pregnant women can do light chores, right? And they say it's good for your health to move around a bit. I guess so. Despite feeling a sense of unease, I told myself it was only for a few months. Okay, then, I'll be in your care. Yes, of course. We're family, so we'll support you. Her cheerful voice slightly reassured me, but I had no idea that I would be betrayed later. When I arrived at my parents' house after packing my bags, I felt my blood run cold the moment I heard the first words after opening the door. I'm home. She actually came back. A married woman is just an outsider. So why is this big fat outsider in our house? Did you come to the wrong place? The words, mixed with laughter, pierced my chest like arrows. It was clear that my very existence was unwelcome. I tried to act normal, but my voice trembled. But for the sake of the baby inside me, I was determined to endure it. Just 2 months, I told myself. But reality was harsh, as if mocking my resolve. They say moving around a lot helps the baby come out faster, right? Why don't you clean the house? Yeah, it's hard to move around when you're pregnant. You're young, so you should be able to handle it. Their words were full of sarcasm, and they were clearly intent on working me to the bone. I was forced to do all the housework, cleaning, laundry, grocery shopping, cooking. I was like a maid. But I'm in my last month of pregnancy. I shouldn't overdo it. What? You're making a big deal out of nothing. They say it's good to move around. It's even written on the internet. Yeah, Ashley has always been a bit dramatic. I was too stunned to speak. This kind of exchange happened every day, and I gradually became mentally and physically exhausted. And that wasn't all. Without giving me a moment's rest, they bombarded me with their complaints and grievances. You should just rely on Mark. You're married, so your husband should just take care of you. I really don't understand why you came back here. You should just go home. Their words finally made me snap. That's enough. I'm here to protect my baby. Do you even realize what could happen to the baby if you keep saying such mean things? What's gotten into you? If you're that sensitive, you should just leave. Yeah, if you're going to be so stressed here, you should just go back to your own place and do whatever you want. Seeing their reaction, something inside me finally broke. You know what? You're right. They were right. In this house, far from preparing for the baby's arrival, I was being worn down to nothing. Okay, I'll do that. I packed my bags and the next morning explained the situation to the hospital and canceled my plans for a homecoming delivery. I was convinced that it was safer to welcome the baby at home, even if it meant doing it alone. The doctor was surprised, but respected my decision. Please, try to welcome the baby in an environment where you can feel at least a little bit at ease. The doctor's words made me feel relieved. Thank you very much. That's what I intend to do. On the day I left, my mother and Lisa were shocked to see me packing. What are you doing? Are you leaving? Yes, there's no reason for me to stay here. Wait a minute. You need to take responsibility until the end. Responsibility? I'm only taking responsibility for protecting my own baby. I don't care about your convenience. Ignoring their voices, I dragged my luggage and left the house. I could feel their cold stares on my back, but I remember my heart feeling surprisingly light. When I returned home, Mark rushed back from his work as soon as he could. The moment I opened the door and saw his worried face, my heart ached.
Are you okay? What happened?
I just couldn't do it. I answered with the best smile I could muster, but my voice probably trembled. I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. If I told him what happened at my parents' house, he would surely get angry and worry even more. I wanted to avoid that at all costs.
You don't have to push yourself. I'll do anything for you and the baby.
I can't express how much those words helped me. I realized once again how much of a support he was to me. I left the hellish environment of my parents' house and restarted preparations to welcome the baby at home. It was tough preparing for childbirth alone in an unfamiliar situation, but I vowed to do my best for Mark and our unborn child. But this wasn't the end. The anger I had been harboring for so long continued to smolder within me. I explained the situation to Thomas and decided to stop sending money to support my mother and Lisa's school fees. I didn't want them to take advantage of our kindness any longer. As expected, I received an angry phone call.
I won't be able to go to school. What are you thinking?
We can't afford to live. We've been helping you all this time. Their voices were ear-piercing as they ranted. Why don't you use scholarships or get a part-time job? That's what normal people do.
It's not that easy. How could you say that to your own mother who raised you? Thomas and I were the ones supporting you. But it's over now, Mom. You've been supported by many men until now, so why don't you ask them again?
There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. But soon, my mother raised her voice in anger.
Do you even realize what you're saying?
Yes, I do. All the emotions I had been suppressing came pouring out.
And anyway, who was it that said a married woman is just an outsider?
What was that? Cat got your tongue? Her voice trailed off over the phone.
If you try to take advantage of us any longer, I won't listen to you ever again. Remember that.
I hung up the phone and let out a deep sigh. It felt like a small weight had been lifted from my shoulders, now that I had finally asserted myself. Perhaps due to the stress, I ended up having to stay in the hospital until the delivery because of the strain on my body. During my hospital stay, I wanted to focus on the baby, so I turned off all email notifications except those from Mark. I spent peaceful and fulfilling days. But one day when Mark came to visit, he revealed a shocking truth.
Ashley, I need to talk to you about something. Your mom and Lisa have been contacting me.
What? What do you mean?
Since you cut off contact, they've started targeting me. They've been calling and emailing me frequently. Lisa even tried to meet me in person.
She tried to meet you in person? Why?
Mark continued. At first, they asked for financial support, but eventually, they asked me to hand over the deed to the house.
The deed? Why would they do that? I was confused and couldn't understand their intentions. Seeing my reaction, Mark spoke with a serious look in his eyes.
They said it was for your mother, but you absolutely must not give it to them. It smells dangerous.
I hesitantly opened my phone and checked the unread emails from my mother. There were over 100 unread emails. So many in just a few days. The content of all the emails was almost the same. They were asking for financial help because they were struggling, and they were asking if they could live with us. In an email from Lisa, there was even a sentence like this. Hand over the deed to the house for Mom's sake. You don't have any use for it anyway. The moment I saw that email, I was stunned. I was speechless at their audacity to try to take away the house I had built. My heart wavered between love and distrust for my family. Why is this happening?
Ashley, calm down. I'll look into it. This is dangerous.
Mark's calm words helped me regain a little composure. My reliable husband was my only salvation at that moment. As Mark investigated, a surprising truth came to light. It turned out that the reason my mother and Lisa were in financial trouble was that they had been repeatedly engaging in fraudulent activities. They borrowed money from acquaintances and friends and never paid it back, using false pretenses to collect money.
This continues. You might get dragged into it too, Ashley. We need to take action. It has gone too far. I, along with Thomas, decided to take legal action, and I came up with an idea. I prepared a copy of the deed to the house and handed it to my mother and Lisa. Ashley, I'll fight alongside you. Let's end this cycle of being manipulated by those two. Yes, thank you. Just then, they caused an incident just as expected. Ashley, your mom and Lisa went to a real estate agency, but they were caught because the deed was a copy. They are now involved in a police case. I thought it might be necessary, so I gave them a copy, but I didn't think they would actually try to sell the house with it. My mother and Lisa tried to sell our house to a real estate agency using the deed I gave them. However, since the deed was a copy, the real estate agency noticed the irregularity and reported it to the police. The police started an investigation into a mother and daughter attempting to commit fraud. When I received a call from the police, I was more dumbfounded than angry. As I listened to the explanation with Mark, I lamented my mother and Lisa's shallowness in my heart. There are too many secrets behind their actions. I think we need to dig deeper. As the investigation progressed, another shocking fact was revealed. It turned out that the money Thomas and I had been sending to our mother and Lisa for our father's hospital bills had never actually been paid to our father. In fact, all the hospital bills had been paid from our father's savings. Why? Where did all the money Thomas and I sent disappear to? It seems your father intended to pay the bills himself and had set up the arrangements. But your mother lied to him. My mother had told us she was taking care of our father, so we should at least pay the bills, but she had lied to us and taken our money. Furthermore, Thomas revealed another shocking truth. Dad found out about Mom's affair a long time ago. And about Lisa, too. About Lisa, too? Tom and I had kept our mother's affair and Lisa's existence a secret from our father, thinking it would worry him. Our father knew everything, but remained silent for the sake of the family. Our mother abandoned our father and devoted herself to her lover, and Lisa's existence was proof of that. Dad, why didn't you say anything? When Thomas asked our father during a visit, he said he didn't think anything would change even if he told us. At the same time, he lamented that his judgment might have been wrong. Hearing my father's words, my heart ached. I regretted not realizing my mother's worst behavior sooner. As these facts came to light, my mother and Lisa panicked and desperately tried to seek my help. We were desperate. If we're accused of fraud, we're finished. Please, Ashley, help us. Mom is having a hard time, too. But I couldn't bring myself to forgive them. Help you? You reap what you sow. Why should I have to fix this? That one sentence seemed to leave my mother and Lisa speechless. However, as the details of their fraudulent activities became clearer, my anger grew even stronger. My mother had borrowed money from acquaintances and never paid it back, using stories about her husband's medical bills and her family not supporting her to gain sympathy. Lisa, on the other hand, had relationships with multiple men and received money from them. Not only that, but she was also a habitual thief, stealing valuables and wallets from the homes of the men she was involved with. It seems Lisa is also in debt, just like your mother, and she's trying to get money by any means necessary. It's really hopeless. With the cooperation of Mark and a lawyer, we began preparing to pursue my mother and Lisa's fraudulent activities. There's no other way but to take legal action. Yeah, that's the only option. It became clear that my mother and Lisa had not only committed fraud, but had also tried to exploit us, their own family. I regretted my past leniency. If I had been more suspicious earlier, things might not have turned out this way. Through our investigation, we, the siblings, were shocked to learn these facts. Thanks to Mark and the lawyer's efforts, the explanation and response to the victims went smoothly, but we were speechless at the gravity of my mother and Lisa's crimes. After that, my father also filed for compensation for my mother, deciding to put an end to their long-standing, nominal marriage. I've endured enough. From now on, I want to live peacefully for myself. When I heard my father's words, any lingering attachment I had seemed to completely disappear. After my parents' divorce, my mother and Lisa were financially cornered. They were burdened with large compensation payments to the victims. They had nothing left to rely on. And we sold the house we'd worked so hard to build, to prevent them from ever contacting us again. Of course, we also terminated the lease on the apartment where my mother and Lisa lived, leaving them homeless and penniless. My mother sought help from men she had relied on in the past, but her faded beauty, lost with age, was no longer a weapon, and they all turned her down. In this situation, my mother and Lisa desperately pleaded with me. "Ashley, please help us. We're family. We have no one else to turn to."
"I've learned my lesson. I won't do it again. Please, just lend us some money."
Their words were hollow, and I couldn't believe they had truly reflected on their past actions. This is your own doing. Do you even realize how many people you've hurt? Us siblings, Dad, everyone. You reap what you sow, so you have to deal with the consequences. And also, who was it that said a married woman is just an outsider? That was. I don't have the generosity to help outsiders. I completely cut them off and decided to focus on preparing for my new life. After the divorce, my father moved to a better hospital near Thomas to reduce his burden, and we also found a new place to live near my father's hospital. After a tumultuous pregnancy, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Completely freed from the influence of my mother and Lisa, our family each began a new life. The painful times can't be undone, but we can create our own future. A few years later, I received news that Thomas had gotten married and had his first child. I went to visit Thomas, his wife, and their baby, along with my now slightly older son. Thomas, whom I hadn't seen in a while, had the look of a father as he gently held his baby. "Ashley, Mark, thank you for coming. He's adorable, isn't he?" "You really are a father now." As I held the baby, my heart was filled with warmth at the sight of this tiny life. Mark, beside me, smiled and waved at the baby. "Congratulations, Thomas. You really built a wonderful family." "Thank you, Ashley and Mark. Please continue to watch over us." The casual conversation we had at that moment felt like it healed all the painful days of the past. The fact that Thomas had created a new family and that my father was spending peaceful days filled me with immeasurable happiness. On the way home, I leaned against Mark. "Let's build an even warmer family together." "Of course. Let's always do our best together." His strong words made our future seem even brighter. No matter how difficult the past was, the happiness we gained by overcoming it is the most precious thing. Holding Mark's hand, I once again vowed in my heart, I will walk a new life together with this person. And together with our son, we will build a family filled with love. And so, I overcame the past and began a new, happy life.